Welcome in, guys. So here we are. It is another Serie A roundup with Sean himself. Welcome, Sean. How are you, sir?
Beyond Giorno. I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Good.
All the better for being here with you, my friend, as always.
Oh, yeah. But I love that you threw I love that you threw in a bit of Italian there as well. Just, beyond Giorno.
Yeah, I even put the accent on and everything.
You did.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it started off almost Sweden with Bjorn.
I'm a multi-talented guy. I can go either way. I'm quite good like that.
Oh, dearie me. Sean, what's been happening? Obviously, sorry, before we do that, obviously, guys, Sean himself, obviously, regular stream, regular content creator with us on Down the Local. Going to be getting back into doing some of his own bits and pieces as well at some point soon, hopefully, little project in place.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. It's all coming up Millhouse. So keep an eye out for Sean. Obviously, what we were going to do is have under his tag will be underneath, so you can sort of keep an eye, know what's happening with Sean and when it's coming up, and obviously everything on there, right under there. Everything on Twitter will be branded as and when it's going live. But for now, we're talking football. We're talking Italian football. We're going to break this into two sections, guys. We found it worked quite well last week. So we are going to focus initially on the league. Sean, what's been occurring?
There's been a fair bit occurring. I mean, obviously in amongst the teams, we've seen a few COVID outbreaks kind of knocking a few fixtures off the fixtures list, which
really
kind of made things a little bit interesting. Inter's game this weekend just gone was postponed due to a COVID outbreak in the Inter squad, which of course has led on to slight repercussions amongst the Italian national squad. So Mancini is having a little bit of a sweat on what players he can call up for the national side. But the last I read this evening was that there should be no issue. So the Mancini will be able to get all of his Italian cohort in the squad, obviously from Inter, and of course once again the players like Nicolo Barella need to be in that squad. I think with the lead up to the Euros.
Yeah, I was going to say it would have an effect on Italy, obviously, but I can imagine it would have quite an effect on the Belgian team as well. I mean, if they're suddenly left without Benteke, if they're left without Lukaku, they're left with Benteke. They've got Benteke and Origi. You've got a guy who's not scoring and a guy who's not playing. So
yeah. Exactly, but on the flip side, it's good news for Chile, obviously, because they won't be able to call up Alexis Sanchez. So
that's true. They have to look for someone better.
Yeah.
So yeah, weekend results. Definitely, we were just sort of saying that some very interesting ones.
Some very interesting ones, yeah. I mean, we saw a win for Torino on the Friday night game, which is a big result for the bottom of the league. Obviously, Torino, the best known for kind of grinding out results. I think they drew 6 games in a row post Christmas, something like that. So, the sort of team they just kind of chalk up points on the board. Your typical Italian team, really, not scoring, but then again not conceding. So, they managed to get what was really a surprise 3-2 win against SAS, who've been doing well this season and probably one of the few teams that could push on and get a Europa League place. But losing to Torino really kind of put a dent in that. So yeah, that was a big result. And I mean, that was just a sign of things to come, obviously going into the weekend. We'd seen in the previous weekend a win for Parma as well, which was very rare this season. So an old Premier League legend in Graziano Pella,
yes,
getting a winner for Parma. who joined them on a 6-month contract last month after quite a decent spell in China, certainly for his bank balance. Maybe not so on the football pitch, but I'm sure his bank manager is a happy chappy.
Yeah.
So,
and then on Friday just gone as well. Pella scored again, but they lost. They lost to Genoa.
Yes, yeah. So once again, that little fight back, and the impossible almost seemed on after that win last weekend, but then they come crashing down, back down to earth this weekend. So it still leaves them a little bit cut adrift down at the bottom, especially after that Torino win.
Yeah, and I mean, Pella was one that I completely missed as well. I mean, I didn't realise. I mean, Parma proper went for it with their signing of forwards with Xerxes, Dennis Mann, and obviously Pella as well. And Pella's kind of come in and stepped in straight away with a couple of goals. But I mean, I looked at some of the stats for that Parma Genoa game, and Parma absolutely dominated it and lost the game.
Story of Parma this season, to be fair. Parma played really well in spells, but it's a bit like I mean, you sort of see some of the Manchester United games this season in the Premier League, to relate to them. Dominate games, look absolutely superb, but an individual error, a mistake, a controversial call, of which there's been quite a few of those this weekend, which we'll come on to. And next thing you know, it's a 1-0 loss, or it's a 1-1 draw, or and it's points thrown down the tube, and that's where it bites you. It bites you when you're fighting for a Premier League. It also bites you when you're fighting to survive in Serie A.
Yes, yeah. So Parma still struggling. I mean, they're off the bottom. They are off the bottom.
Yeah.
Which
is no surprise. Crotone have been the whipping boys this season, so that was no surprise, to be honest. That they are off the bottom, and to be fair, I think that it's very, very, very unlikely that Crotone will usurp them and get themselves back up the league. I think they're pretty much resigned to ending back in Serie B.
Yeah, I think from a Parma point of view, though, that the fight is on. I mean, they've not had the same results as the teams above them. The teams above them have actually had a better set of results over the last couple of weeks, but they are only 4 points adrift of safety at the moment. Which
but then the issue comes that it's then a further 6 points, to the next place. So it's a very precarious, a result either way. And like I said, that Torino win has put them, a good 4 points clear of Parma at the minute. So Torino sitting on 23 points as opposed to Parma's 19. So there's a win difference there, and that's probably what it takes. So
and the goal difference is significantly better as well for Torino. Yeah,
significantly. So it's. I mean, we've said all along, really, since we've done these chats, it's quite saucy down the bottom of Serie A. It's somewhat been, that chasm has opened up, that 6 point chasm, which once again we'll come on to the biggest shock result of this weekend in a moment. That's created that gap, and a little bit of the fallout, obviously, from that. But it's now left, really, it's a 4-way dogfight down there at the bottom. Obviously, with 10 games to go, there's still a lot of football to be played, but it does seem like it's going to be a bit of a tussle between those three teams. With Calgary playing the meat in the Torino Parma sandwich at the minute.
Yeah, I mean,
Torino, that, doesn't
it? Calgary sounds like it would be quite a nice filling.
Yeah, but the Torino Parma sandwich.
Yeah,
it's got a ring to it, hasn't it?
It definitely sounds like it would just be a full-on meat sandwich, like with meat topping, meat base, and meat in the middle. Like it.
Yeah, with a nice ciabatta bun. Yeah.
No. I'm talking like meat as the bun as well.
Like it.
It's just a meat sandwich. You're just adding loads of different Italian meats together. I love it. That's the way it should be.
Approval.
Obviously, Torino have got a game in hand as well, which could really put a proper spanner. I mean, if they win that game in hand, it puts them 3 points behind Benevento, but also it gives them a 5 point gap over Cagliari, and obviously then a 7 point gap over Parma. And when you're not in form, that's quite a big difference.
It does. I think that we bring Parma up, and I know both of us have a certain affection for Parma.
Yeah.
For the players they've certainly had, and they're like the Southampton, I suppose, of Serie A.
Yes.
They bring out so many fantastic young players, and you see them later on down having fantastic careers.
Yeah.
And then you realise they started off at Parma or something like that.
Yeah.
So it would be a shame, and they had a superb season last season. So they miss. They've missed this season someone with, the Dejan Kulusevski, who really last year lit up Parma.
Yeah.
And allowed the players, even at the age of 19, to bring the best out of players around him. And I think they've lacked that this season.
Yeah.
I think what they have done, and it's been, but it was, the surprise piece of business they did do was Graziano Pella coming back to a team where he started off. You could see him maybe getting the best out of players around him, and it's showing already. He's chipping in with goals. Joshua Xerxes hasn't really done anything since he's gone there. Wasn't surprising. I don't think he's a sort of player that we're going to talk rant and rave about in 5-6 years' time.
No, which is weird because looking at it, and obviously everyone, as I said, like when they first signed him, everyone will know Xerxes as from a Bayern Munich set up on Football Manager, and he goes on to become a worldie. And it has got to the point where Football Manager doesn't get it wrong huge amounts of the time. The scouting setup is so much better. You don't get your Cherno Sambas from the old school camp. Exactly. You don't get that so much anymore. But Xerxes looks like one of those guys who possibly could be. Yeah,
I mean, to name two more recent ones that are probably three. I could name maybe four even. The Football Manager wonders. Certainly, two of them were Pietro Pellegrini, the young Italian who went from Genoa to Monaco, who, as far as I'm aware at the minute, is doing more work in the treatment room than what he is on the pitch. And of course Moise Kean as well, who has done okay at PSG at the minute, but was Juve's he was the youngest ever player in the Champions League to play in the Champions League when he came on as a sub for Juventus. Obviously done very well for a very, 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 very short period of time for Juventus, which was warranted a move to Everton for quite a lot of money. And then he's done okay at PSG in small spells so far this season. But
he's done better at PSG than he done at Everton.
Which but we both know, Neil, it's the French league, isn't it?
It's very true. I mean, he does strike me as potentially being another Balotelli.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
on his day, can be an absolute well beater. He just doesn't fancy having his day all the time. So
I think there's definitely an attitude problem there, and it's I just caught myself saying there. I was going to say that it's very rare that Juventus would allow such a teenage prodigy to move on, but I've got Kingsley Coman doing a half decent job in the Bundesliga, so I'll shut my mouth. And Thierry Henry as well. Oh, oops, what have I done?
Yeah, no, that's fair. So we've looked at the bottom of the table. The bottom four primarily. Obviously, we've got that little bit of a gap, and then you've got a glut of teams sort of only separated by 10 points between 16th and 8th. So there's a bigger gap between 16th and 8th. No, sorry, less of a gap between 16th and 8th than there is between 16th and 20th. So we said about shock results of the weekend.
Yeah, there was a huge shock for Juventus at home to Benevento, who sit just above Torino. So that's why that sixth gap has been opened up, because they got a shock 1-0 win at Juventus Stadium. Not without its controversies. It was a good display from the Benevento defence. Surprising, no surprise their goalkeeper got man of the match in the game after keeping out the Juventus side. The Juventus side that's been ticking along okay. Obviously, didn't really let didn't really let the exit of the Champions League hinder them too much. I mean, there was two very poor displays there against Porto, and it somewhat has shone the spotlight on Pirlo and what I talked about right at the beginning of the season, in that his setup and the way that Juventus are playing at the moment seem to lack a lot of identity. So one of the key things that was picked out from this game was the amount of crosses that Juventus were putting into the box. Now, Juventus have never, for a long time, never really been a kind of, a wing play team, getting out wide. Obviously when they had Conte there, with Allegri, even with Sarri last season. It was possession-based football, and then you come alive in the final third, and it's through balls, it's runners off the ball. You had your likes of Cuadrado, you had Dybala moving in and around, shifting defenses around. It was never a case of you get it out wide and then put a cross into the box for someone to get their head on. You know, I mean, it's very old school. It's very much against the DNA of Juventus on what Juventus have built.
It's kind of against it's against the DNA of Italian football because I mean, you even look back 20, 30 years ago, and you would say then when an Italian team signed a striker from England, so Ian Rush, for example, going to Juventus, it was because in England the ball was put in and he was live to it in crosses and things like that. And when he went to Juventus, they weren't crossing the ball in.
No, didn't work.
And it's old school, but it's the weird thing about it is it doesn't suit. It's not even a setup that Pirlo's ever been involved in.
No. You know, I mean, you look at the Milan side that he was so instrumental in.
Yeah.
And once again, the Juventus team he was so instrumental in. It just seems to be that it's, for me, there's a lot of players there that don't really understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
And how to do it. Like I say, they really lack an identity. That was lost when Allegri left and Sarri tried to come in and I think reform. And I mean, I remember speaking, Andrea Agnelli talking after appointing Sarri and saying this is very much, we want to have Sarri ball here. We want to have quick football. We want to have intense football. You know, Juventus were going through the rebranding thing there where they had the silly logo that obviously brought a bit of controversy. And it's very much a culture thing. And Juventus want to be a culture club. They want to be this. They want to expand football almost. You know, they want to step outside of football and be that club that does that. You know, goes that bit further than what a football team should do. You know, oversteps that line of being a business.
Yeah.
So you know, they want to and have a culture almost to say have this attractive football. So you want to switch in and watch Juventus in the same way that a lot of us wanted to watch Liverpool last season because of this fantastic football in the way that we watched previous Barcelona sides, previous Arsenal sides, previous Manchester United sides, because it was just attractive football, and even the neutral would get on board with that. And that's what Juventus wanted to do. They wanted to create this culture at the club. So it was always why I was extremely pessimistic about Pirlo coming in, a young coach who doesn't really have any experience, doesn't have any kind of identity really as a coach, frankly. And it's showing. It's showing.
I mean, from that point of view, from that point of view, though, I mean, I'm looking at the two main strikers they use in a lot at the moment are Ronaldo and Morata. So they've got two of the strikers who are arguably the best in the air in that division. So it makes sense that they're crossing the ball, but they've done it and negated Dybala almost.
Dybala's been out pretty much all season injured.
Right.
He was very out of favour beginning of the season with Pirlo, and then he's been suffering with hamstring niggles and knee niggles. So he's he hasn't appeared at all pretty much since September, I think.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I genuinely thought he was just out of favour.
Yeah, but I mean, having said that, Kulusevski's pretty much identical to the way that Dybala plays. You also have the likes of, you know, Aaron Ramsey's been playing a lot this season. Well, he's not a winger, and B, he's definitely not a strong presence in the air. I mean, Adrian Rabiot is obviously a presence in the air, but that's about the only place where he is a presence. Because he doesn't even have a head on his shoulders. He's as thick as two short planks, that bloke. So and it's painful. It's painful watching him play week in, week out for Juventus. You know, for me, growing up, being obviously a Bianconeri and watching Juventus, we've always had such a strong midfield. An absolutely fantastic midfield. You know, you can go back as far as your Nedveds and your Davids and your Takanadis and just fantastic centre midfielders. And frankly, this season it's dire. It's absolutely dire in the centre of the park, and it's cost them.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, Inter still top of the table. Milan dropping further and further adrift. I mean, you said on the first show when we looked at the Italian league that, you know, it was Inter's to win and they were going to run away with it because Milan were falling away at that point. And I mean, Inter have got a game in hand. Obviously, as you were saying, they had their COVID outbreak, so didn't play, but won 5 in a row. Now 6 points clear with that game in hand as well. Juve still have their game in hand, but it's suddenly become very, very squeaky bum time. Milan are in second on 59 points, but they're not in any. I mean, they've won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1 of their last 5. But you've then got Juve on 55 points, down to even Lazio. Lazio have got games in hand above some of the teams above them, but in 7th, they're only 6 points adrift.
Yep. And we saw a fantastic win for Napoli as well yesterday away at Roma.
Yes.
And Roma, who have been doing very well recently. You've also got Atalanta playing absolutely superb at the minute. They're one of those teams that they churn results out. I mean, they funny enough, obviously wear the same colours as Inter, but they're kind of like an Inter light. They just churn results out, and they're a very, very stubborn, tough side. No real big name players in there. I mean, Josip Ilicic up front and is probably the only notable one there. But I mean, they've got a fantastic amount of players throughout the team. A fantastic squad. Yeah, really, really strong, dogged squad. So, and they're sat there, and I think they could, potentially go above Juventus, who are currently occupying 3rd. If results start going the wrong way, if Ronnie keeps spitting his toys out, and so it's getting quite tasty up at the top. I mean, we talked about that bottom 4, but as you say, that it's anyone's game at the minute. And I honestly couldn't call it. I really couldn't call it, because there's teams coming out of form, there's teams coming into form, and we talk about AC Milan. They have had a blip, since after Christmas, but it was always a bit like sprinting downhill, and they were doing really, really well, and now they had a little tumble, and they've got back on their feet, and they're still doing well. And obviously with the with Ibrahimovic is sort of now starting to get back on the pitch a bit more, a bit of match sharpness. Obviously getting a goal at the weekend, which was incredibly controversial. I had the chance to watch it back before going on air, and I'm sure we'll touch on that when we come on to our player analysis later on. But things like that, they are picking up results. To saying that 3-2 win against Fiorentina was a fantastic result, and that just bouncing back against the disappointment of Thursday night against Manchester United in the Europa League, where I think they were favourites and really over the 2 legs should have gone through. They were much a better side over 2 legs, so I mean that must have hurt. So to bounce back and get a 3-2 win just show that they're a bit more steely than even I thought. Yeah,
they're definitely not. They're falling away, but they've not fallen away any worse than the teams around them, apart from obviously Inter. Just before we sort of end this section, one thing that I was surprised about: there is not one team in the whole of Serie A that have not won once, at least, in their last 5 matches. Every team has got 1 win in their last 5 games, at least.
It just, I mean, it's once again, I think we talked about on the very first time we did this, that, that these teams, anyone could beat anyone on their day, contrary to belief. There's always we sort of obviously view the Premier League as I mean, it is the best league in the world as far as I'm concerned, and we believe that a lot of these other leagues as into inferior teams who sit down the bottom of the league and get battered week in, week out, and the top dogs that we see in the Champions League are the only teams that are in those leagues. We probably can't name many teams in the Spanish league, but we definitely know about Barcelona and Madrid and Atletico Madrid. We don't, anyone else, they're kind of shoved under the carpet. But when you do a bit of analysis and you look at these leagues, there's some fantastic teams in there. And when you look throughout that, Serie A is looking as strong as it has done for a long, long time. It's looking absolutely superb. So, and it's showing in the league. It's showing, it's superbly competitive, and there's no surprise that those teams are separated by such a fine margin.
Exactly. That's great. Right, guys, we'll wrap up on the league there. We will be back with Sean in a very short while. For now, though, Sean, thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you in a moment.
Welcome back, guys. So we've had a look at the league. We know where teams are at. We know where the points are at. And we know that is pretty much Inter's. But who's doing well in who's doing well in the player side of things? Sean, what's occurring in the players?
Oh, I don't know. Don't ask me, mate.
Oh man, that's why you're here.
Oh yeah, isn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, should be asking me. So obviously, I mean, it's the same old story, really, isn't it? Big Rom is doing the bizzo over at Inter in the capital of, in Milan, so not the capital of Italy. Don't know where I was going with that. He's not in Rome. Don't worry, I do know my geography. But yeah, he's doing the bizzo over there, so banging the goals in. So I mean, we're seeing obviously Chris Ronald as well has been chipping in with quite a few goals recently. Got a hat trick last weekend.
Yes, he did. Yeah,
which is his first one in a long time. I think that might be that is his first for Juventus. Actually, I think.
Yeah, it was. I think it was his first for Juventus because they then made a point that he's the first player to score a hat trick in the Prem, Italian and Spanish top flight.
Yeah, I know. I think up until then, I think he'd had about a dozen doubles or something, and there was obviously quite a lot of talk about that, and that he hadn't scored a hat trick, which is quite unlike old Chris Ronald. So yeah, he finally put that hoodoo to bed and managed to get himself that. But of course, it didn't, unfortunately, lead to too much of an uplift in Juventus's form. Obviously, crashing at home to Benevento this weekend. So which he registered the most shots again during a game. Which I'm sure there's got to be a stat on that where he's had the most shots in games.
Oh, I can imagine there is, and I love the fact. I mean, he just all he does though is he clearly has no faith in the people around him because every time he gets the ball, he shoots.
And you've epitomised Juventus's problems in many ways there, young Neil. Which. But I mean, to obviously talk about other players as well. Another one that surprised me, and I wanted to bring it up in the last few shows, is Federico Chiesa, who's been playing very, very well, and pretty much single-handedly nearly kept Juventus in the Champions League, single-handedly, because I say, old Ronnie just was completely absent for both games, for both legs. He's only ever scored one goal against Porto, and it showed because. Pepe had him in his pocket for the whole of those two legs. But surprisingly, Federico Chiesa's been coming up with the goods, which is fantastic for Juventus. But I think both of us spoke before this season saying that we didn't particularly believe that was going to be a very good signing. It was more of a name amongst Italian football, and he looked okay at Fiorentina, but frankly, I never thought he would go on to do as well as he has done in his first season.
Yeah, it was definitely when they picked him up and it was on loan to start with. And I was like, it almost smacked of the fact that Juve didn't necessarily have huge amounts of faith.
Yeah.
But they wanted to have a look. And he's turned out to be, if he keeps going at this rate, he's going to end up being better than his old man was.
Yeah.
And I mean, his old man was still playing in the top flight in Italy at 37, 38.
Yeah. So they had one hell of a career. And
I
think certainly, as I say, for Juventus fans, there was a whiff of the deal for Bernardeschi, who once again done the exact same thing at Fiorentina, arrived at Juventus and just didn't cut it. Frankly, I mean, I think it was a bit unfair on him. We talked obviously in the previous segment about Juventus's identity. You're bringing in an out-and-out wide player into a team which plays very central. It was a similar situation with Douglas Costa when he was at Juventus. When he did play, he was absolutely superb. But they had to play him as like an inside forward, inside of a 3-5-2 formation, which just you couldn't shoehorn him in anywhere really. So, and I think it's been the same thing with.
That goes back for years. Thierry Henry was signed, and they played him as a wide man and not a forward. Yeah. It's been an inherent problem for a long, long time by the looks of it at Juve. But Bernardeschi, he always strikes me as a runner, not necessarily a fantastic footballer, but his work rate is great. He's up and down. He's almost like an Italian Ray Parlour.
Almost. I think his technical ability is underrated, and he's probably not the speed merchant that he needs to be. Whereas in Chiesa is the speed merchant. He's very quick and very technical as well. Very good at dropping the shoulder and just ghosting past a man. Which, as I say, is probably what Juventus have needed this season because, frankly, they're just they just don't come alive in the final third at all. It's so
Yeah.
ponderous. So they're really relying on the likes of him and obviously Juan Cuadrado to kind of do the business, which is a bit painful, really. That your right back is arguably your most fruitful attacking outlet, through the season. But
and the fact that it's Wayne Cuadrado.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, who it can be erratic at the best of times. But he's been a fantastic servant for Juventus since he's been there. So obviously it didn't work out for him at Chelsea, which was a big shame. But I do remember his time at Fiorentina, and he was phenomenal there. So it was a real surprise to see him not really do it at Chelsea.
And in the World Cup for Colombia, where James Rodriguez got all the plaudits, but Cuadrado was quality in that tournament as well.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
I mean, what surprises me, everyone sort of seems to talk about Ronaldo's, he's dropping off, he's not the player he was. He's still, by far and away, the top goal scorer in Serie A this season.
Yeah.
23. I mean, Lukaku's on 19, and don't get me wrong, Lukaku has to share his goals out a little bit with Lautaro Martinez, but Ronaldo's got 23 goals. I think he's only started 23 or 24 games. So he's still banging in the goals, and there's talk of him not being happy. There's talk of him going back to Real Madrid. I'm pretty sure I saw the other day.
Correct. Yeah. There's been talk of it. There's also been talk of going back to Manchester United as well. I mean, I think someone was quoted as saying he has spoken to his agent and asked to formulate a move back to Real Madrid, which doesn't make sense on any level. When we know who Cristiano Ronaldo is and why Cristiano Ronaldo is where he is and how he has got there, there's no way he would go back to Real Madrid or go back to Manchester United. No. I think if he's going to make one more move, it will be to Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, or he'll go back to Sporting.
Yeah.
And it won't be a big transfer fee. It will be back there just because he can.
Yeah, to be back in his native land. But I think if Juventus do decide to offload him this summer, which wouldn't be a bad idea, considering he's got 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
Cash in. I think we could see him in a Paris Saint-Germain shirt and potentially someone coming the other way.
At the age of 36, how much do you reckon PSG would pay for him with a year left on his contract?
I think they would pay not far off what Juventus paid for him.
Really?
Just think of how much money you could make from selling T-shirts.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's what that's if anyone was to sign him, and that's
it's going to be as much a market employee than anything else.
He's already recouped every penny that he's cost at Juventus in T-shirt sales alone. I'm sure. I mean, we saw it. Back when I was playing under your team, Neil. I remember lining up for training and seeing kids in the park wearing Juventus shirts with Ronaldo on the back.
Yeah,
days after he signed for him.
Yeah, and they probably didn't even know where Italy was, let alone Juventus.
Precisely.
So yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so we'll sort of go down. So obviously we said about big Romy, Lukaku on 19 goals. So we go from Ron to Rom. 19 goals so far this season. Obviously taking Inter to top of the table. The next one, obviously, is a guy who has filled in the gap of Papu Gomez being ousted at Atalanta, and someone I've never heard of. I'm not going to lie, never heard of. Luis Fernando Muriel Fruto. Is that Muriel?
Luis Muriel, yes, yeah.
There we go.
Muriel,
that's
the Colombian.
Yes, I have heard of him.
There's always someone who shocks you. I mean, a bit like Fabio Quagliarella did.
Yes.
With their goals. And Luis Muriel is 100% one of those. Watching him play a few times when he was at Fiorentina, I wouldn't have even. He's not a top division player in any of the top 5 leagues as far as I was concerned. So to see him doing so well at Atalanta, it definitely shows that a player can achieve something if obviously they've got the right mindset and if they get the right move as well, and maybe alongside the right players. At Atalanta, you've got some absolutely fantastic creative players there in the likes of, Josip Ilicic is probably the number one playmaker, apart from maybe Nicolo Barella. In Serie A at the moment, he's such a phenomenal Rolls-Royce footballer. So
Yeah.
to have the likes of him around him as well, I think it's definitely helped Lewis Muriel. And like I said, we spoke about Atalanta, and it's just a superb squad. There's goals from all over the
Yeah.
squad, but they're all chipping with assists as well. And I'm sure if we look at the assist numbers, we'll see that's spread pretty sparingly across there. I think Robin Gosens will probably be quite high up there, who's a wing back,
Yes.
who I think we'll be hearing a lot more of in the future. That's for sure.
Yeah. Is he the Belgian guy?
Yes.
Belgian?
Yes.
Left wing back. Yes.
Yeah, and a really, really tidy, solid player, and you could see him going to, you know, even the likes of like a Man City or someone like that. I think he's a fantastic young player.
Cool. Okay, so after Muriel, so I have heard of Lewis Muriel, but not when he's listed as Fruto.
Yeah, I know. Oh, fruity.
Oh, fruity. Fourth in the list, obviously your fave, Big Zlat, on there with 15, which
Yes, big
he kind of evergreen. What's he, 39 now? He's signing a new deal at Milan again, which will take him to him being 40 or 41.
Yeah, 41. And he spoke about that today, and quite tearfully as well, believe it or not, for Zlatan, showing some kind of emotion that isn't anger. Very surprising, or hubris even.
Yeah.
His usual kind of arrogant, steely facade was broken down when he spoke about his love for the Swedish national team, and watching his children play football, and he spoke very sort of emotionally about that, and had to wipe away a few tears as he spoke about that. So it just shows that he's this move to return for Sweden for the Euros, and he's speaking of the World Cup as well in 2022, playing for Sweden then. So
he just wants to break Roger Miller's record, don't he, for Cameroon?
It's not necessarily even the playing side of things. He said he wants to help out, and he's more as a coach more than anything. I think he wants to be there as a leader in the team.
Yeah.
He then obviously went to speak on about the exact same thing at AC Milan, which I believe ties in what he was hinting at with his involvement in the Swedish team.
Yeah.
And that is at AC Milan. He spoke about he feels like he's out there playing football with his kids. He said, in the AC Milan team, I'm the one that they turn to, like a child would turn to their father almost, and they look up to me, and I'm the one that's there giving them this joy of playing football almost, so he did definitely puff his shoulders back out after having a little bit of a cry, bless him.
Obviously,
so, unsurprisingly. But he spoke about obviously the extension at Milan, and said that he really buys into the dream there, and that he is fully on board with the project at AC Milan. So maybe it's no surprise that they are sat in second, and that we could see AC Milan being a force again across Europe and in Serie A after having a few barren years.
Yeah, what will always be surprising, or what will be surprising, is if he takes a more backseat role, a more coaching role within Milan. And this is this will be a surprise, because he is so fit and so capable of still playing.
Exactly.
Is, will he allow others to come in and do it, or will he say, do you know what, actually I'm better than what you are, I'm still able to do better than you, and bin people off and play himself? And it was always an issue that came up with Roy Keane when he took over teams, and the big issue was in training. He wanted to be involved, and he still wanted to be the best, and he'd hair around a pitch, and he'd be better than the others, and he could not understand why players couldn't perform what he wanted, and it was his downfall. Roy Keane was building himself out to be Man United manager, and had he got that gig earlier with better players, he probably would have been a good manager. But because he tried to sort of build himself up with teams that weren't up to that level, he struggled. And it'll be interesting to see if that happens similar with Ibrahimovic.
Yeah, I think I don't think we'll see Ibrahimovic as a manager. I think we'll see more of as a coach.
Yeah. Maybe a
director
of football influencer.
Yeah, precisely. I think that would be a more preferable role, and I'm sure he'd prefer that as well.
Yeah.
I don't think the head coach thing would particularly sit well with him. I don't think. With having other people around him telling him what to do, because we know that head coaches are head coaches, and they're not. They don't control football clubs. So I think that would certainly be it. But there was definitely a softening of the guard in his words that he spoke of.
Okay.
Today, sort of saying, um, about how he understands his body better now. He's stronger than he's ever been. But he admitted, the legs, the mind works quicker than the legs.
Oh, we all know
So
that.
he is aware of what he's doing. In that he is obviously, in the same way, obviously, I suppose we're tarring Ronaldo with that brush that he's on the wane. So
Yeah.
at least Latan's aware of it, and he's using what he does have. And we're seeing that, in AC Milan's play, he holds the ball up absolutely phenomenally and brings
Yeah.
other players in, and he's so clever with his movement. It's not quick movement; it's so clever.
Yeah.
So you got to absolutely give him that props. But having said that, speaking of clever, and this was obviously one of the biggest piece of controversies to come out of this weekend, in the 3-2 win for AC Milan at Fiorentina, was the first goal shouldn't have stood as far as anyone was concerned, and that was Latan's goal, where he quite clearly absolutely clatters someone off the ball
Mm.
and then runs through and scores a goal. Which, if you get the chance, if anyone's obviously watching, obviously yourself, Bajie, if you get a chance to watch it and have your own opinion on it, but certainly in my opinion, and in the three biggest newspapers in Italy, all believed it shouldn't have been a goal, and if the referee didn't intervene, then VAR took a look at it and they decided not to intervene, which was really quite surprising.
Very bizarre. A little bit like we spoke about last week with Dan for the Erling Haaland goal that wasn't given against Sevilla. That was then given as a penalty. That was then given as a retake penalty. Did you see all of that?
I missed that.
Oh,
yes.
So yeah, 5 minutes of controversy. So we'll trade up. I'll have a little look at the Ibrahimovic goal. Check out the controversy of the Erling Haaland against Sevilla. He goes through. He gets deemed as pushing the defender to score. The defender tries to shoulder barge him and bounces off. Haaland scores. It gets pulled back. They then review an incident from a minute earlier, which then gives them a penalty. To which the keeper makes a double save and shouts in Haaland's face. Severe breakaway when in the other penalty area, the referee halts play, goes and looks at the screen again, and then asks for a retake because the keeper's come off his line.
Off his line, no.
Haaland scores it, shouts in the goalkeeper's face, and gets booked. Bizarre, really bizarre, but 5 minutes of complete carnage, and VAR is there. And the outcome, as Dan pointed out, the outcome was exactly the same had they just let the first goal stand.
Yeah.
But you almost had a full-scale brawl because of it.
Did we see as well? Just sorry to kind of hark back a bit, but I mean when VAR first got introduced, did we see there was a game between, I think it was Switzerland and someone, with the game at, I think it was 1-1 or something like that, and whichever team went up one end and had a shout for a penalty, the other team countered and scored,
and then it got
then VAR looked at it, cancelled the goal out, and brought it back for the penalty, and you think, oh well.
Yeah,
it's just that jubilation to absolute dejection in such a cruel circumstance. I believe it was Switzerland and Croatia or something like that.
Yeah, World Cup 2018 it was.
Yeah, but just absolutely bizarre scenes, and I know VAR is always going to be a talking point on any kind of football discussion. But the more and more we see that some of these things happening, the more and more we question why is it being made. And once again, to talk about controversy from the weekend, there was another big piece of controversy in the Juventus game. With the game at 1-0, Chiesa was brought down inside the penalty box by a kind of a falling lunge by one of the Benevento defenders who brought Chiesa down. The referee decided not to give a penalty and play on. And VAR didn't even intervene. They didn't even look at it. And once again, everyone else, all three publications have said it was a penalty. And quite clearly a penalty. So, it's so poor old Penaldo, as he's been known as. Maybe there. I'm sure there was a few people scoffing in the Italian boardrooms about that.
The opportunity did not come to extend it and keep Juve on a good run. So. Not last two in the top scorers list, obviously, because there's lots of people who've scored goals. But Ciro Immobile and Lautaro Martinez both on 14 goals with Lazio and Inter. Obviously, you kind of expect an additional Inter player to be in there. If the top scorer in the league isn't an Inter player with the way they've been playing, you expect another one to be in there somewhere.
Definitely, yeah, exactly. And you were absolutely right in saying that they've shared the goals, but I mean, it's been the performances of Romelu that's really kind of set them apart. I mean, some of his goals this season, a highlight reel of his goals this season would be fantastic to watch because they have been phenomenal. And his link-up play with Loretel Martinez, it'd be such a shame if that does get broken up, this summer, which by the sounds of it, there's going to be a bit of a fire sale at Inter come the end of the season, and that team is going to get absolutely decimated. So it'd be a bit of a shame to see that happen.
Yeah. And obviously Ciro Immobile being the only goal scorer really for Lazio, but still doing it. And which is quite good because I would always say one of the most important things as a striker is to be mobile, and he's immobile. So
he's very immobile. He's a real surprising player, Ciro Immobile. And obviously, we've seen him do a little roadmap across Europe. At the likes of Sevilla and Borussia Dortmund. Having those big moves and then ending up back in Serie A, and just seems to be a player that's comfortable at home, maybe.
And to be fair, I would say bang average for most of his career until he got to Lazio.
Yeah.
There was always something about him, but never really delivered. But at Lazio, the guy keeps scoring goals and keeps scoring goals. So
it passes my mind who he was because obviously he was loaned out from Juventus, and I remember seeing him in a couple of preseason games when he returned to Juventus before he moved on.
Yeah.
And once again didn't really look comfortable in a Juventus shirt. So I don't know. Maybe he just prefers to be a big fish in a small pond, and
possibly,
maybe that just suits some players, and fair play to him. At least he gets the best out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a quick look here. He had a period of time out on loan at Pescara where he had a decent goal scoring record.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Genoa.
Genoa's probably the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he did nothing at Genoa.
Okay.
Went to Torino, had a good season there. Went to Dortmund, was rubbish. Went to Sevilla.
Torino as well, yeah. Okay.
Was rubbish. Sevilla, again, they then bought him after a loan and he was rubbish. Loaned him back to Torino and he was all right. But at Lazio, the guy has been a revelation. And I mean, it took him until he was 26, 27 to really hit any kind of form on a regular basis that was in the top flight or at one of the half decent teams, because he's just faltered the rest of the time. But he's gone to Lazio. Lazio have no need to sell him, and he's just carried on doing the biz. So
yeah.
So looking at
a half decent Lazio side as well. He was some decent players in and around him, and
and we will focus on
that's what it takes.
Yeah, and we'll focus on one of those now because we look at the assists, and this is these sort of things surprise me a little bit because Alvaro Morata, you would not have him as an assist king, but he has got 8 assists this season. Basically, 5 players have all got 8 assists in Serie A. Morata is one of them. Now, when we're saying about Juve whipping the ball across in, all I can imagine is Morata nodding the ball down for someone else to score.
It's not been the case. I know we've talked about Morata in the past, and at Juventus, he's done his fair share of nodded goals this season, and a bit of dirty work up in the air because purely that's how Juventus have been playing. But where Alvaro's been most deadly is just playing off the shoulder. Okay. Just those little runs, kind of just getting in between the fullback and the centre back, and he does that extremely well. And what he has done is he can get out of his feet quite well and play that sort of cross-come shot pass almost, where you've got the likes of Ronaldo. I think we saw a couple of goals in the Champions League where he was also once again knocking it down for players, making those runs and then playing it back into the danger area for the likes of either Cuadrado or Chiesa or even McKennie at times.
So he's almost sort of hitting the channels.
He's like a target man almost, really. Morata's been superb. And for some reason in the Juventus shirt, he seems to feel at home. So he's done the same thing in his first spell there.
Yeah. Obviously, next up you've got Hakan Çalhanoğlu.
Hakan Çalhanoğlu, yes.
Hakan.
He's been eyed by Manchester United as well, because of I believe he was coming towards the end of his contract this summer, so I think they eyed him, but I'm not sure what the situation is.
Fantastic player, but I can imagine a hell of a lot of dead balls in there. He takes pretty much everything for Milan, doesn't he?
Yes, precisely. Yeah, he is a dead ball specialist, and I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen his free kick that he scored for Bayer Leverkusen before he joined Milan, which was absolutely insane. So yeah, he is a dead ball specialist.
Yeah. Next up, Henrik Mkhitaryan. Remember the name. Oh
Remember the
God,
name?
no, don't
don't
remember
it.
the name. Don't remember the name. Forget the name. But doing a bizzo for Roma.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he arrived there, and I mean, when you got the likes of obviously Dzeko around you, and Diego Perotti, and saying some of the other players have had who's Carlos Perez, and they got good little amount of attacking players there. Once again, Dzeko's not had the season that it was expected, and it was no surprise with obviously the amount of speculation was at the beginning of the season. I think that definitely kind of rocked his head a bit, and maybe he hasn't been acting on instincts as much as he had been in the past. So
I think also from his point of view, it did feel as though Roma were trying to farm him out.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden they couldn't, and they're saying, "Oh, by the way, you're our main man. Can you do the job for us?" And he's like, "Hold on a minute, you didn't want me. You didn't want me 10 days ago." So it's going to have an effect, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I mean, Mkhitaryan's had a good season. Just one of those players. He's never really set the world alight. He's not kind of grabbed a game by the scruff of the neck, but he just chips in with that pass and doing what he done at Dortmund. Really, before obviously an ill-fated spell at both Manchester United and Arsenal in the Premier League.
Yeah,
we know he's a bit of a pass master. He can thread those passes, and he's showing that at Roma, which is good to see because I always enjoyed watching him play when he was at Dortmund. I thought it was such a shame that it didn't work out for him in the Premier League.
Yeah. Moving on, Romelu Lukaku up there with his assists. As you said, he's had an absolutely banging season. So it's good to see. It's good to see strikers in here, not sort of the feeders, but obviously we've got Morata in the assist list as well. But Lukaku, as you say, I can imagine there's a lot of goals where it's his runs, his bullying of defenders that have teed things up for Martinez.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, in the same way that it was with Morata, really, and we've always spoke in the past about really you expect your strikers to be right up there in the assist numbers as well because they're the ones who are in the danger areas all the time. So, and it shows really a well-rounded striker if they're getting plenty of assists, they're not greedy. They're not snatching at chances. They're not trying to do it all on their own. So, it just shows how fantastic both those players have been this season, and obviously one is going to get the rewards with the Serie A title at the end of that.
And then we're looking at Sergio Milinkovic-Savic. Now, this is one I really like because obviously he had such a bad injury and he sort of fell off the face of the earth when everyone was talked about wanting him.
Correct.
But now, obviously, back in doing the bizzo.
Yeah. Took him a little while as well, to be fair. Beginning of the season, it was a bit tricky, but he's certainly come into a bit of form. Towards the middle to latter part of this season, and and once again, it's great to see his name back up there.
Exactly. Cool. Right. But that's perfect, Sean. That is perfect, my man. We will be back with Sean very soon. In the meantime, though, guys, back to Bajie in the studio, and we will have an update on Serie A in the very near future. Sean, pleasure as ever.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.